Are you watching this one? Good evening. Welcome to the Planning Commission for Hot Springs, Arkansas. Tonight's invocation will be led by Commissioner Walker, and tonight's pledge will be led by Commissioner Thomason. Would you please join us?
Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting, and continue to remind us that all we do here today is for your glory and for the service of our community. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Could I remind everyone to please pull your microphone forward and speak into it?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, the Planning Commission for April 8th, 2021 is now officially called to order. Before we call the roll, let me explain a little bit about the seating out there. The governor's social distancing directives for COVID-19 have changed our format, and despite what he's doing here in Hot Springs and in City Hall, we're doing our thing. So we have some planning commissioners that are here in board chambers, as you can see. And then we also have members participating via Zoom. On Zoom, we have Commissioner Rick Ramick, Commissioner Baker Goldsmith, and Michelle, is that you?
Michelle, yes.
And Michelle.
Traffic
Michelle
was
Baker.
terrible. I'm almost home on my regular computer, but right now I'm on my phone, yes.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
We're limited to 21 occupants, including us, in the board chambers. Applicant representatives and planning staff will be with us also, and some members of the public obviously are there. We ask you that once you have spoken or we've finished discussing your item, if you would please leave the chambers. Robin Wise will help you find a place outside where you can see and listen, and she will bring people in from out there when there are clean seats. If you do want to speak on any item on our agenda tonight, we ask you to sign up on the appropriate sheets at the back table. And in the meantime, Mr. Stoddard, would you please call the roll?
Ramick.
Here.
Thomason.
Here.
Hobby. Carrie Hobby. Baker.
Here.
Jackson Goldsmith.
Here.
White.
Here.
Walker.
Here.
Janet.
Here. Thank you, sir. May I have a motion for approval of last month's minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
same sign. Do I need to ask the Zoomers individually on the minutes?
No.
Okay, good, thank you. And may I have an approval of tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
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 I kind of got backwards there, didn't I?
It's okay.
The next item on tonight's agenda is the consent agenda. And the items placed in this section are applications which demonstrate compliance with all applicable city requirements. These items shall not involve discussion by the Planning Commission or the public. The consent agenda will be voted on in one motion. However, if any two commissioners request that individual items be discussed or voted upon as separate matters, they can request that those be pulled off of consent and reduced to new business. Is there such a request? Michelle?
Mr. Stouter?
You went outside.
Did he find somebody?
I'm curious about, do we have anyone signed up to speak?
Yeah, there's some people signing up on it right now. There are several here that I know speak on the Creekside RV Park.
Okay, that would be item number 2.
Okay. Then I need two commissioners to please request that that be pulled from the consent agenda and moved to new business.
Let's remove that from the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Thank you. And that does that, right?
Mhm.
Okay, now, Ms.
You
Selman.
need a vote on the consent
We do?
agenda as amended.
Oh, as amended, I forgot that part. Yes, we do. We need to vote on the consent agenda as amended. I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. And all in favor of the consent agenda as amended with item 2 moved to new business?
You mean
Aye.
item 3?
Aye.
No?
Aye.
Oh, yeah, 3, I'm sorry. I
Okay,
said 2.
sorry.
It's 3, sorry. Thank you, sir. Item 3.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? You can't be opposed, we all agree. Okay. And now may I have a motion for tonight's consent agenda as amended?
We just did.
I just did that. I'm sorry, I'm so confused. Thank you. All right, the consent agenda has been approved. Ms. Selman, would you please introduce these items for us? No?
Yes. I will read items number 1 and 2. They are both proposed for approval with conditions. These are the 2 items on your consent agenda. The first is PD 21031, St. Vincent Plan Development Site Amendment to include changeable tower signage to be located at 300 Warner Street. The recommendation is to approve a request for 2 9.5 by 50-foot signs for CHI St. Vincent Hot Springs Hospital, because with conditions, the application complies with the requirements of Hot Springs Sign Code 16524G. And the condition would be that no additional signs shall be permitted on either of the 2 tower facings. Item number 2 is conditional use 21030, a conditional use request for a bed and breakfast located at 2300 Central Avenue. The recommendation on this is approval with several conditions, 8, which I will read into the record, because with the conditions, the application satisfactorily demonstrates that all requirements for approval can be met. Number 1, all construction and construction activity are to be accomplished in strict accordance with all applicable approval conditions and with the minimum standards, codes, rules, and regulations and policies as may now or hereafter be required or enacted by the City of Hot Springs, the State of Arkansas, and/or the United States of America. And this includes the Arkansas Fire Prevention Code, whether or not these items are submitted for staff review or Planning Commission approval. Number 2, the development site shall be constructed and developed in strict accordance with the approved site and development plan, including but not limited to location of buildings, drives, parking, and existing landscaping. Number 3, all existing site features and introduced landscaping will be maintained and repaired where necessary. Number 4, separate permit application shall be made by the applicant to Hot Springs Engineering Department, and permits shall be in hand for storage, stormwater, drainage, and sidewalks, as may be required prior to any work beginning. Number 5, no development signs are approved or permitted as part of this conditional use review. A separate sign permit application, review, approval, and permit shall be required prior to installation of any signs on this site. Number 6, all exterior lighting shall be fully downcast and full cutoff, and shall contain all illumination on the subject property. Lighting shall be positioned so as not to create a nuisance to any adjacent properties. Number 7, this use and activity shall not impose any undue hardship or nuisance upon the nearby neighborhood. And number 8, the applicant has an affirmative responsibility to demonstrate ongoing compliance with the conditions of this approval. The violation of any of these conditions so imposed shall constitute grounds for revocation or modification of this conditional use permit by the Planning Commission per Hot Springs Code Section 16279. And that concludes the presentation.
Thank you. Now that we have been presented with these, may I please have a motion to approve the consent agenda as it stands?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Stoddard, would you call the roll?
Thomason,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Goldsmith,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Ramick,
Aye.
Janet.
Yes. So on the consent agenda, items 1 and 2 have been approved, and we'll now move to new business. Item 4 was removed from new business, so item 3 will be our one new business item. And Ms. Selman, will you please introduce that to us?
Yes, item number 3 is site plan approval, number 21-028, site plan review for the construction of an RV park located at 270 Honeycutt Street.
Thank you, ma'am. And I've lost my place. I've really lost my place.
Motion for approval to open discussion on the item.
Thank you. That was weird.
Still weird.
I think that the microphone's laughing at me. May I still have a motion for approval to discuss item number 3?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Would you like to hear the project at this time?
I'm not sure
We would
where I
love
am
to.
today. Yes, thank you.
Okay. The applicant and property owner, Mr. William R. Smith Jr., seeks Article 2 multiple building site plan approval to develop a 20-space recreational vehicle park to be known as Creekside RV Park on the subject property. The project is located at 270 Honeycutt Street and consists of approximately 3.76 acres. The property is zoned M1, light manufacturing, and has a future land use map designation of industrial. It is located in Board of Directors District Number 1. RV park is a permitted use within the M1 zone district. Tonight's review is to consider specific site arrangement and not the RV park use. Previous Planning Commission action at the regularly scheduled meeting held on September 13, 2018, Planning Commission unanimously approved the 21-space Creekside RV Park project with 9 conditions. The project, however, was not initiated by the owners. Hot Springs Code states in terms of approval that site plan approval by Planning Commission shall be effective for 1 year from the date of approval. While it is possible to request extension prior to the approval running out, this did not happen. And so because of the expiration of the approval, this prior 2018 site plan is now void. The subject property currently contains a 1-story industrial building, approximately 8,000 square feet, currently unused. Although a large portion of the property is also located in the 100-year floodplain, the existing structure appears to be located outside the floodplain. The property owner now desires to construct a 20-space recreational vehicle park use on this site. The proposed project generally includes RV spaces, parking, paved vehicular access, turnaround, restroom/shower house facility, solid waste facility, and utility extensions. The site plan depicts in detail the overall site layout and associated site improvements, with construction of both water and sewer main extensions, as well as the installation of 2 fire hydrant assemblies, which will provide for on-site utilities. The majority of the proposed RV sites are generally located along the northeast side of the existing building toward the adjacent creek. and 3 of the proposed sites will be southeast of the existing building. A survey for the property was included in the development plan set. The survey meets the requirements of the code and identifies the known floodplain, and it is depicted on the survey. No permanent structures are proposed within the floodplain boundary. According to Mr. Denny McFate, City of Hot Springs Public Works Director, RV sites are allowable in the floodplain as they are not permanent structures. The application requirements to submit a site plan for review have been met. The recommendation is to approve the Article 2 site plan for the 20-space Creekside RV Park located at 270 Honeycutt Street, subject to the following conditions, because when these conditions are applied, the application complies with the requirements of Hot Springs Code, Section 16420. And just to repeat, this is not whether an RV park can go on this site. It is a permitted use, but this is about the arrangement of features on the site. Condition number 1, the development site shall be constructed and developed in strict accordance with the approved site and development plan, including but not limited to drives, parking, turnaround, utility extensions, and landscaping. Number 2, all construction and construction activity are to be accomplished in strict accordance with all applicable approval conditions and with the minimum standards, codes, rules, and regulations and policies as may now or hereafter be required or enacted by the City of Hot Springs, the State of Arkansas, and/or the United States of America. This includes the Arkansas Fire Prevention Code. And this includes whether these items were submitted for staff review or planning commission approval or not. Condition number 3, separate permit applications shall be made by the applicant to Hot Springs Engineering Department. Permits shall be in hand for stormwater, drainage, and sidewalks as may be required prior to any work beginning. Number 4, no development signs are being approved or permitted as part of this site plan review. A separate sign permit application, review, approval, and permit shall be required prior to installation of any signs on this site. Number 5, electrical services must be underground. Number 6, all exterior lighting shall be fully downcast and full cutoff and shall contain all illumination on the subject property. Lighting shall be positioned so as not to create a nuisance to any adjacent properties. Number 7, this approval is for an RV park. All RVs on this site must be temporary in nature, remain readily movable, and are for short-term occupancy only. Number 8, an emergency preparedness and evacuation plan shall be distributed to all campers. It shall be entitled Creekside RV Park Emergency Preparedness and Evacuation Plan for Campers. The map shall be part of each flyer and given to each person renting a site. Number 9, site plan approvals by Planning Commission shall be effective for 1 year from the date of approval. Prior to its expiration date, the Director of Planning and Development may extend the original site plan for up to 2 one-year periods upon the applicant's written request. Planning Commission approval of any project that has not fully secured all required permits within the period of time set forth shall be null and void. And that concludes the presentation, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, ma'am. Would the applicant please, is the applicant present? Sir, would you care to come to the podium and add to anything that Ms. Selman has told us? And if you would, please state your name and your address, and you have 5 minutes.
My name is William Robert Smith, Jr. My address is 118 Houston Drive here in Hot Springs. My wife and I moved to Hot Springs in 2012 at the time that we bought this property. We hoped to be able to do something to develop it. It had never had city utilities. Should I remove this?
You're welcome to do so, sir.
It had never had utilities. This was the old warehouse for the Modern Window and Door Company on Spring Street. This is where they stored their parts for the windows and doors. So it was never tied into water or sewer. And that's obviously going to be one of the main improvements that we would make. So we just think with the tremendous surge that we've seen across the country, especially related to the COVID situation, with over 7 million new RVs being sold in 2020, that there's a tremendous demand for these kinds of facilities, and we just want to offer what we think will be a good service to the public.
Thank you, sir. Would any of the commissioners have a question at this time? Mr. Ramick?
Yeah, I'd like to know what the plans are for the vacant building.
Commissioner Ramick would like to know what your plans are for the vacant building.
Part of it will be where the bathrooms are located. Part of it will continue to be for personal storage. Part of it will be for a gathering area for people who are guests in the park.
Commissioner Ramick,
Okay, so you're not planning on demolishing the building, correct?
will you be demolishing the building?
No, the building will stay in place.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldsmith, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Are the individual sites of the hookups designated on the? Oh yes, I'm sorry, they are. I am just now seeing how they're angled in. No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Baker, do you have any questions for the applicant?
No questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Walker?
No question.
Thank you. Commissioner White?
No questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Thomason? Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Stoddard. All right, Dina May, if you'd please come to the podium. If you'll restate your name and give us your address, please, you'll have 3 minutes, ma'am.
My name is Dina May, and I live at 120 Honeycutt, so I guess my questions would be towards Mr. Smith.
Okay.
Excuse me, if you would please direct your questions
To us.
to the planning commission, then they will follow up.
Okay. I live at 120 Honeycutt. The residents in this area were not aware of an RV park. There is a sign at the bridge that you have to get out, walk up to, look up close to see what it even says. There's no sign on Spring Street. There's no sign up at the upper part of the hill. Our property runs along Wayne Street that adjoins Mr. Smith's that runs down. My son was outside a few months ago and someone was clearing the land off, and that's how we found out there was an RV park. So my questions for us on the upper part of the hill is, what are the plans? Is he going to develop the upper part as part of that RV park, or the reason that that land is being cleared? That was just some of our concerns for us in that neighborhood that is up on the upper part of that hill. It adjoins a lot of property up there that Mr. Smith does, so we had no idea of this, and we just, as a concerned area on Spring Street, and also us, what the plans were for it.
Okay. We'll get those answered for you.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank
ma'am.
you.
I want to do that now or just okay. Shirley Bates? Ms. Bates, if you'll please restate your name and give us your address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Shirley Bates, 2129 Spring Street, and I live just a little ways below, and I didn't know anything about any RV park going in, and we have family all up and down through there, and it's just a shock to us to find out that there's going to be an RV park put right across the street from us there. So I'm against it. I mean, it's right there close to where I live, and so I'm just going to say I'm against it.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Manuel Bates,
They didn't let him come in. He's my husband.
do you want to trade places with him and he can come in and speak?
Yeah.
Your purse, ma'am.
Mrs. Bates,
Yes.
did you forget your purse?
I'll be, oh, she's. He has declined to speak.
He has declined to speak? All right,
Oh,
thank
okay.
you. That is all of the people that have signed to speak.
They said he declined to speak. Oh, okay.
I guess that you covered it for him.
I guess I did.
Good job, Mrs. Bates.
Thank you.
Sir, would you come back to the podium, please, so we can ask these questions of you? Okay, I'm going to go with questions from the audience first, since we've already spoken to him. Sir, do you plan to develop the upper part of that hill?
Number one, it's not allowed for that to be an RV park. So it's different zoning. At some point, and that's the reason we had a forestry mulcher come in and clear some of the brush that had accumulated over many, many years. Because we wanted to just see what the land looked like, and it was literally so grown up that you couldn't see anything. So we hired this guy to come in. He spent the better part of a day out in there clearing that. At some point, we would like to make some use of that property, but at this point, it wouldn't even be allowed for it to be an RV park.
So you currently have no plans for that area?
No.
All right, thank you.
We don't have specific plans. We just know that we would eventually like to do something with it.
Okay. Any of the commissioners have any further questions?
No question, Chair.
Commissioner Walker?
No question.
Commissioner Baker?
No questions.
Commissioner Goldsmith?
No questions.
Commissioner Ramick?
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Thomason?
No, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
If I could just say one thing, I believe it's a requirement, as I understand it, that there has to be a 10-foot buffer on any kind of property like this that's developed.
Setback?
And we're also talking about 20 spaces. We're not talking about, hundreds and hundreds of spaces. And so they're also anticipating, and we checked this out early on in the process. I don't think that they've had final approval, but widening the bridge that crosses Gulf Creek on Honeycutt is supposed to go from the current 1-lane bridge to a 2-lane bridge, which would make this property, I guess, more accessible. So I don't think it would have any impact on the folks living on Spring Street, but
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
The public portion of this item is now closed. Commissioners, anybody have anything to say? Crickets. Commissioner Goldsmith, no? All right, thank you. Then I think that we're ready to ask for a vote. The way the item is stated, if you are in favor of passing this, vote yes. If not, say no, and you must explain why. Mr. Stoddard, would you please call the roll for the vote?
Okay, motion for approval with the 9 conditions. Baker,
Yes.
Goldsmith,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Ramick,
Yes.
Thomason,
Yes.
and Janet.
Yes.
Okay, that is 6. Doesn't seem like enough.
2, 3, 4, 5. That's
7.
7.
7.
Okay.
If you count everybody.
7 passes by 7-0. And that is final action unless appealed to the Board of Directors within 30 days.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the director's report. Ms. Selman, would you like to direct some report to us?
Yes, I have report to direct to you. There will be a couple of ordinance amendments coming forward on the May Planning Commission agenda. And I want to explain what those items are so that you can be eagerly anticipating them. The first one will amend the zone district narrative descriptions of permitted uses. The narrative descriptions that are in the code don't necessarily match up with the table of uses. The code does say that the table of uses is what you look at to know definitively what uses are allowed, but it is confusing and can leave people with the wrong idea, which we never want to do. So we will be going through and cleaning that up so that it's clear that if you want to know what uses are permissible or conditional uses for a zone, take a look at the table. So that's a change that we will be asking you to consider.
Okay.
The table evolved and the narratives just didn't. So some of them are way off. And I do need to tell you that, well, no, I don't. I'll tell you next time.
Well, now we're anxious to know.
I know.
Oh, the silence.
Yeah.
Hollywood
You got it,
Queen.
Rick. Okay, amending the definition of group dwelling to be equivalent to the number of people that are allowed in a family. This has several parts. The Federal Fair Housing Act prohibits having a rule that creates a higher bar for group dwellings than it does for families. So what am I talking about? Family allows up to 8 unrelated people. That's our definition of family. And as we have been enforcing group dwellings, we've used that same number, 8. But if you read the code, and I know you do, you know that it says for group dwellings, you have to have a conditional use approval if there are more than 6 people.
Yeah, why is that?
Well, there's more.
Okay.
The Federal Fair Housing Act just doesn't let us do that. In our code, apparently as far back as 2003, maybe further back, has had that discrepancy. We have not enforced it because we were told by the city attorney and by the Fair Housing Commission very clearly that this is not legal. And so, make 8 the number for everybody. So, we need to bring the text into agreement so that we can treat family and group dwelling the same way. We're looking at 8 people either way. So, following the advice of Fair Housing Commission after an Arkansas Supreme Court decision on a Jonesboro case, and it could just as easily have been a case involving us.
Oops.
They had almost the same situation. They have said it's time. We need to apply the standard of 8 to group dwelling formally. So we need to amend the code. And this also came up in a recent HUD-required study called the Analysis of Impediments to Fair Housing Choice. And there was a finding in that study that said, you, City of Hot Springs, need to fix this discrepancy. So that will be the second of the 2 text amendments that we will bring to you in May. So.
Kathy, I have a question on that. Does this also, the 8-person limitation, does that also apply to group homes for mentally handicapped?
For everybody. We cannot
for
distinguish.
clean and sober houses? I mean,
If
can
it's,
they have more than
if it's 8 people, then it's 8 people. And how you describe those people, you can't change that number.
But
why
is-
they're there-
Is it a maximum of 8 is what I'm
It's
asking?
maximum of 8.
Okay.
They don't have to have 8 people, but they can't have more than 8.
Okay.
To be treated as a family.
To be treated in the same equivalent way, yes. Do you have a question?
No.
Oh, okay, okay. You had your pen up, and I was thinking, oh, he wants to say
He's
something.
looking very professorial tonight.
You are,
With
as
the
a
pen
matter of
and the white
fact.
jacket. Yeah.
So that's it. That's
Oh,
all I
okay.
have to tell you.
Well, that's not so bad.
Yep. And I will say, it should be obvious to you that item number 4 was withdrawn at the meeting on Tuesday night at the board. The Silver Key Plan Development was remanded back to Planning Commission, so unless we hear otherwise from the applicant in writing, expect that that will be on the Planning Commission agenda in May.
Do you have any feel for that?
I have no feel for anything, especially that.
Is there gonna be any new rulings on the code about that?
STRs.
With regard to regulating short-term rentals, yes, there will be. And we are not the lead on that, so I can't really,
I'm thinking about building them in a building that many in a
I-
residential neighborhood.
I can't help you. I don't know where
Don't
it's
know.
gonna go. Nope. Nope.
That is an awful lot. That does sound kind of like a commercial development.
Well, we're not gonna talk about it because it may come back to you. And we can't really
Corner
discuss
sandwich.
it without the applicant being present.
I thought the board threw us under the bus.
There was a bus. There were some people.
I used to be
That's
much
all I got to
rounder.
say.
Yep.
No, we may
Hey,
be
I feel
looking
that I'd
at
like
it
to
again.
make a motion to adjourn.
That's a good idea,
All
Rick.
right, I have one motion to adjourn. Do I have another?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And my boys